How's it going? This is Jared.
Hello, this is Ryan.
We are in episode 1 of our to-be-named podcast.
Yeah, the Maiden voyage. That's not the name of the podcast, but...
Come up with something.
Yeah.
So, this is February 16th, I think, right?
Yeah.
So we just had Valentine's Day. Did you guys...
Some people had Valentine's
That's
Day.
true.
Yeah.
Did you have Valentine's Day?
We do not honor that holiday in our house. We have at times, but I've convinced her that it's all a sham, and I don't need a special day to profess my love to my bride.
Profess it every other day.
24/7, man. It's no. I do. You guys celebrate it? Do you do something?
So we did
this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
We went and had lunch, actually. I decided instead of trying to get dinner reservations and deal with crowds and all that,
Right.
I just took off work early and we got lunch. But I would say generally we try to do something, but we're not like we might go the day before,
Right.
or the day
Or
after, or whatever,
the weekend after, or something like that.
We don't like crowds. We don't like dealing with all that.
Well, I think that's part of my problem is I don't like crowds. I don't like overpaying for things, and I don't like made up things.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what Valentine's Day is. It's like, you know, I mean, everybody, it's an old joke, bad joke. It's a Hallmark holiday. It's the companies trying to take more money out of your pocket for something silly.
Right.
And yeah, it's just stupid in my opinion. And I think I've convinced her that it's
It
that
worked.
it's the same. Yeah. Now, and I think even the boys, 2 out of 3, you know, they don't have girlfriends because they're too young, but they
Never too young, right?
well, true, but they don't honor it either. The oldest boy obviously took his lady out for dinner, and they did something, I don't know, but
Now, do you guys get something for your kids for
Nope.
Valentine's Day? Man,
Nope.
you just are like Grinches over there.
Well, it's not a holiday, man. It's a made up BS
It's an
holiday.
excuse to eat chocolate.
I don't think we need that in our house.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We did. We got the kids. Kristen, I mean, she's always wants to get them something for a holiday, so we got them chocolate, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. See, maybe I'll get them February 17th chocolate, and I'll pay.
It's probably half off
as much.
right now, yeah.
So I am a Grinch when it comes to most holidays. It's like it really takes a lot for me to get excited. The only, Christmas and New Year's, believe it or not, the Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving are kind of my go-to.
Mm-hmm.
I just, for whatever reason, I like them. And there's more tradition in my family about them. And then, Easter's not bad. For a non-religious guy, it's all the religious holidays is what I like. But it's all about the, what I remember from being a kid. Maybe it's because I never had love in my life as a child that I don't, that I don't give a shit about Valentine's Day.
I'm pretty much right there with you. I usually feel guilty on the way home. You're like, oh, I better get her something, and I'll stop and get.
I had a little guilt.
Some flowers or whatever.
Yeah, and I went to. I think I went to Schnucks that day. I went somewhere and there was flowers, and I was like, do I? And I was like, you know what? It'll mean a lot more. I think it'll mean a lot more if I send her flowers on March 8th than it would on February 14th. Then she's the only girl in the office with flowers on her desk. On February 14th, every broad's got flowers on their desk. She's not special then. So this,
I think that too, but then I never do it.
Yeah.
March 8th comes and goes. And
yeah. Well, and then the other problem is it's a holiday that is just completely disproportionate to the female race.
Yeah.
There's no benefit to men. There's nothing in it for us. Well, maybe. I guess if you buy a big enough, flower arrangement, there's something, but or buy a big enough box of chocolates, then there's something, but
there's rarely a delivery truck showing up for the guy at work.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that you want that delivered by truck either, but what you but no, it's just and they've talked, everybody makes jokes about the whole steak and a blowjob day, and that's a fine holiday. I just wish that it was celebrated. But maybe then it's a chicken and the egg thing. It's like, well, maybe if I start celebrating Valentine's Day, then the old steak and BJ would follow suit. But it hasn't yet.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'll have to test that theory maybe someday. But so what else went on this week? We have the unapproachable topic of what happened in Florida.
We do.
And I think, we don't have solutions.
No.
And
we have opinions.
We have opinions. But, what I've heard on the radio is a lot of people claiming, or maybe not claiming, but acting as though they have the solution. Everybody wants, and even on Twitter,
Sure.
I know you're not a Twitter guy or social media guy, but out there, everybody's got an answer. Everybody thinks that they know they got the golden ticket, but nobody does.
And it's not even that they have the answer. I think everybody right now wants to attack, let's just say,
whatever the opposite of their
say
is. Yeah.
There needs to be gun control. I mean, that's the only answer I'm hearing, right?
Yeah.
That's what people are saying.
Well, but then the Trump administration says, well, it's a mental health issue,
right?
And it's the problem, man. Nobody wants to compromise in this world. Everybody wants to take their party line and yell and scream, which is why this could never be a political podcast, because we would have to scream a hell of a lot more. And if we scream, it's going to be it's not good. So,
well, let's just, who cares what other people think? What do you think? What is the reason for the extra or the increase in number of shootings? Let's say school shootings.
I think I don't think there's any. Well, let's take a couple of things I don't know if they're a fact or not, but let's say that there's no more guns today than there was 20 years ago. Okay. I don't know if that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's more AR-15s today than there was 20 years ago. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know the stats on that. But assuming there's not any more firearms in the world today, then something else had to change.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that? And I think it is the same reason kids are eating Tide Pods, is that nobody's watching these kids.
Yeah.
Nobody's paying enough attention to them. And there's a lot of kids that are troubled, more so today, I think, than there was whenever we were kids or before then. And, certainly there's the gun issue that he shouldn't have had in his hands to begin with. Maybe they shouldn't be making them. Maybe they shouldn't be selling them. Maybe the laws should be tighter against who they sell them. Maybe FBI background checks should be more strict. All those things. But let's put that aside.
Mm-hmm.
And the simple fact is that this individual decided to take other people's lives from them. And anybody that does that, whether it's a school shooting or whether it's, that guy that drove into the crowd in Virginia or whatever, that's a mental illness. If you decide that it's okay, it's acceptable to take another human life without regard, without any conscience, then that's mental illness. That's the definition of it, because there's something wrong with you if you don't value human life. It's not, and then the argument would be made that, well, it can't be generational, because you look at some of the other people that have gone in and shot up places, and they're older. They're older people, so it can't be generational. But, again, I don't have solutions. I just got a lot of thoughts and a lot of ideas.
Yeah. I tend to, I won't say I side with the gun rights people, but I don't think gun control is necessarily the answer. Because for one, I don't think gun control would have prevented this guy from getting a gun. It was already illegally obtained. He was 19.
No, he got it legally.
Well, are you allowed to have an AR-15? I thought you had to be 21.
He passed the background checks. He was able to purchase it. That's what I heard.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't actually know the laws in Florida or whatever where he's at, but my understanding was I thought you had to be 21 to purchase
maybe that's an Illinois thing, which would make sense in Illinois, that it's more strict here. But from what I heard,
well, then if it was legally,
but that leads into, well, how did this guy pass a background check? And now we know a lot of other things that we didn't know 2 days ago or 3 days ago, definitely before the event, but that he all these warning signs. He had posts on social media. He had posted something on some YouTube video that said, someday I'm gonna be a professional school shooter.
Right.
And it was reported to the FBI, and it was missed, and someone dropped the ball, and human error, whatever. So the background check would have stopped it if things had been reported properly and followed up on properly. Then the laws that are in place currently would have prohibited him from buying a gun, and then saved 17 lives subsequently. So not to say that it's that person who dropped the ball at the FBI or wherever. It's definitely not their fault. There's one person that's responsible for this, and that whack job that decided to go in there and shoot up the place. But if we want to analyze what went wrong where, it's obviously a laundry list of things that went wrong.
But if you want to hurt a bunch of people, kill a bunch of people, and you don't have access to an AR-15 because of some law, you're going to find another way to do it. You're going to get a crock pot and some ball bearings or a piece of plastic pipe or whatever, and you're going to find a way to hurt a bunch of people, or you're going to drive a car over, Like that, the issue is not the fact that this guy was able to get a gun. Now, that might have made what he happened to do easier to do. He shot people. Okay, but my argument is he was going to hurt people anyway.
Right. If he really wanted to hurt somebody, he would have done it in whatever means, by whatever way he could. And you're right. I think about that too, the whole crockpot thing, or what are we going to outlaw next? And people make the arguments like, well, you can, they call it an assault rifle. Well, if I throw a rock at you, if I throw this beer bottle at you, it's an assault beer bottle all of a sudden.
Right.
So we're going to outlaw everything with assault in front of it. And the counter argument then is, well, you can't kill 17 people in 5 minutes with a rock. True.
Yeah.
Valid point, right? But still, where does it end?
Generally, when you start talking about gun control, they draw the line at things like shotguns that you might use for hunting or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, if you can't get an AR-15, but you can get a shotgun, then you're just going to grab a shotgun instead. You'd have to outlaw everything gun-related to prevent. And even then, I don't think you'd prevent it, because now you're just going to prevent the law-abiding citizens from getting them.
Exactly, because it's already against the law to kill people.
Right.
So you make it against the law to own a gun.
Let's make a law where,
So the person that committed this crime is already committing a crime, whether or not he legally obtains the gun or not. It's still, so it's just silly arguments, and I think it's pretty clear to our listeners that where we stand on this, but. There needs to be, a real compromise. And unfortunately, the dude in the White House wants to appease the NRA, and he wants to make his base happy and say, well, no, it's all about mental health. And then the, Nancy Pelosi's and Chuck Schumer's of the world want to say, well, it's all about the NRA. This guy was troubled, sure, but that's not where we need to talk about things. All of the above.
Yeah, I'm sure there needs to be some action on
another note. If they're really worried about the schools, which they should be, right? I mean, when's the last time you went up to the high school here in town?
About an hour ago.
Right. So, it was for a after-school event. Okay. But during the school day, when was the last? Right. So, I've gone up there.
It's been a while, yeah.
And you have to push a button, and then a little camera comes on, and someone looks at you, and you say, hi, I'm so-and-so, I'm here to see so-and-so. Yep. And they buzz you in. It's good, right? So for a school of that size, that works. You go over into St. Louis, you go to Lindbergh High School, you go to some of these larger schools where they have multiple buildings. It's harder to execute that. But it's not impossible.
No.
And if we're really serious about it, well, then the government, if they want to put some money towards something, they give money to schools for protection, to hire police or, armed security that's there at all times.
I've seen that brought up a lot. Well, we need to have armed guards at every school. And I don't know how practical that is. I mean...
Well, look,
maybe it is.
When you go into the office, your office, is there security?
Sure.
Yeah, there's security at my desk, at my office before I walk in the building. There's turnstiles that you have to go through. You have to have a badge. Yeah. Every door that you go into in my building, you have to badge in and badge out.
Yeah.
And that's a financial services firm. We don't have cash laying around.
It'd be hard to imagine state funding or federal or whatever paying for half a dozen armed guards walking around every school in the country.
I think, but look, then you go back to I'm a small government or whatever. Mm-hmm. So you go back to that, people will get pissed because the government's imposing their power over small local school districts, but you don't have to tell them how to do it. You say, here's this money, and this is how you have to allocate that money, whether you want to do turnstiles and badges or whether you want to do armed security guards. Look, in our town, well, again, you never think it's going to happen in your town, but maybe we're in a lower risk area. But who knows?
I don't
know. And that's still not going to fix it, because people are still going to get away. People are still going to find a way to do harm if they really want to do harm. And that's the sad state of affairs that we're in. And maybe it was happening 100 years ago. Maybe there was crazy people walking into public buildings and killing people 100 years ago, and the media just wasn't there to report on it. But
I read an interesting article the other day. A friend of mine sent it to me, and it was from 2015, so it wasn't even a reactionary post to this shooting. It was it was more analytical. I think it was in the New York Times. I don't have the name or the author, but the gist of it was that it's almost a riot mentality. So the correlation there is, there's the type of person who would pick up a rock when no one else is doing it and throw it through a window.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a type of person who wouldn't do that on their own, but if someone else did it, they would join in.
Sure.
But it only takes one other person for that type of person to join it. And then there's the type of person that if one other person was doing it, they wouldn't do it. But if two other people were doing it, they would join it, right? And so that becomes progressive. Once you've got 100 people doing something, it's much easier for other people to feel like it's okay for them to join in. So as each one of these shootings happens, it adds to the list where some other disturbed kid thinks, you know what, there's lots of people doing this, I'm going to do it too, and kind of join in. Where if no one else was doing it, they wouldn't do it. Or if only one other shooting happened, they wouldn't also do it. But it happens, half a dozen times a year, it seems like.
Yeah.
So that was one theory in this article. But the other was that it had to do with sort of the mental illness factor.
Right.
But it wasn't so much that there's these crazy people or that they have a tendency for violence. It kind of started talking about almost like the autistic scale, and that there's people with, on the spectrum of autism that essentially don't have empathy for other people and the decisions or the actions that they take and what those consequences are. Not meaning that they don't care, just that their mind doesn't work that way, and they don't think about like, well, if I do this, this is going to happen, or this person's going to feel like that.
They just don't process it the same way.
Right. And so they process things like the stimulation that, any little kid, any little boy likes to have gun fights and play G.I. Joes and have bombs and stuff, right? But most of them don't take that to the next step of, blowing people up. But this article was basically saying that if your brain doesn't process it that way, then your way of getting interested in that is like, oh, let's do this for real. I like explosions and guns and whatever. And they actually had a specific case of a guy recently who was caught before he did anything, but he had a storage shed full of bombs that he made and guns and whatever.
Jesus.
And he had this all planned out, and he seemed like a complete psychopath. When they were interviewing him, and when they first caught him in the shed, his answers to their questions were very scary and creepy. And as they interviewed him even more and more, it became evident that he was a teenager. He was a kid, 16, I think. He wasn't a psychopath. He had some range of, I keep saying autism. I don't know if that's the word, but
some level. He was on the spectrum. Right.
And they said it also became evident he didn't really want to do this. In fact, he kept finding ways to postpone it. Like, well, I didn't get the right crock pot yet. Oh, he was going to blow up a crock pot. I still haven't found the right ammo for this gun, that kind of thing. He didn't really want to go do it. He was going to kill his family too. And, but he liked his parents and he liked his sister, but in his mind, he thought that was part of what this meant.
Right.
If I do this, by the way, I also got to kill my family. So anyway, it was just the way his mind worked. But so it wasn't this evil hatred and this guy's been persecuted. He wasn't. So anyway, the whole point of it is we need to look at things like that. It's not always just some abused kid or somebody that was made fun of or whatever. Right. It's like some people just process things differently, and maybe we need to look into that. Anyway, there's an interesting article.
Well, we need to look into that for, in my opinion, a couple of reasons, because there is obviously, I think, an uptick in autistic diagnoses. I don't know, whatever. So I think there's an uptick, or at least you hear a lot about more. Same with
you do hear about it more.
Peanut allergies and all the other things, right? So why? Mm-hmm. There has to be a study out there somewhere that says that gives some quantifiable evidence as to why we see this more today than we did 20 years ago. Why is it that every other classroom at our kids' school has someone with a peanut allergy? Whenever we were in school, nobody had a peanut allergy. I don't recall anybody.
I never even heard of it.
And then there's latex allergies, and there's this and there's that. So is it just that parents are that much more cautious today? Parents are paying closer attention to their kids' health. Is it Munchausen syndrome or Munchausen by proxy? Is it some other why? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that there just be this unexplainable uptick in these maladies that are facing our children of today.
One issue I have with that is, you've heard the whole your immunizations, right, are causing autism, and of course there's been all this backlash that that's not true, and how dare you say that? You're just putting fear in people's minds, and we still need immunizations, right? So I almost think it's gone the other way. Maybe there's something to that, maybe there's not, but the fact that there's this hatred among moms out there who are like, how dare you accuse immunizations of causing autism, that it's like you can't even bring that up anymore.
No,
people just laugh at all, or this guy's a nut job.
Right.
So I think there could be something to it, and maybe we still need to study that.
But you got to be able to talk about it, and that's the problem with so many things today, is that you can't even talk about these things.
Exactly.
And it's like you and I can, I think we agree on a lot of things, but there's things that we don't agree on completely. And but we can have a conversation, and we can talk in measured tones and not scream at each other and not hate each other, and walk away friends at the end of it, and still never convince each other that one's wrong or one's right, but have the conversation. And too many people out there just can't even listen to someone who dissents.
Oh yeah.
And it's ridiculous and scary, because we're never going to get anything done unless we can start talking about whatever the topic is.
We can have a whole other podcast to talk about how you can't talk about anything.
Talk about how you can't talk.
So we'll do that next time. But this has been our first complete episode, I think. I don't know if we accomplished anything or got our point across the right way, but
I think we proved that we can talk about almost nothing for 20 minutes with no effort whatsoever. It's been fun.
I've been Jared.
And I'm Ryan.
Until next time.